Hello friends, this is Soul with another video. We're going to be doing some more patch 9.1 coverage, and this time we're going to get a little bit more specific, as in we're going to take a look at some of the new Soulbind traits. Actually, we're going to take a look at all of them. We're going to take a look at every single Soulbind trait that is coming in patch 9.1 because they're all pretty much out. They are free for us to take a look at right over kind of there. Let me move Let me move my butt over to the other side. So we're going to take a look at these, give a little bit of commentating, some reactions and other such things, and just try to have a little bit of fun with it. And of course, I need to let you folks at home and elsewhere know that this is the Peter. Everything here is subject to change, so I'm not going to go as far as talk about, when you critically strike, you gain 20%. I'm gonna not get too far into the numbers, knowing that those numbers are going to change. But from the feel of it, it looks like the general framework of how these Soulbind traits are going to work they're pretty much set. There might be some minor changes. Maybe there might be an outlier that could have a big revamp over the next couple weeks or months or whatever until patch 9.1 comes out. One thing that all the Covenants and Soulbinds share are, I guess, the shape the descending shape of how the rest of this Covenant tree looks, because everyone gets a potency slot right from the get-go, and from there you get two choices here, you get followed by whatever choices that are linked to it, and then you get something at the very bottom, the juicy center, whatever you want to call it. Also, just like in 9.0, the Soulbind rows are going to be unlocked over time via Renown. You can see here that this Soulbind upgrade for Dreamweaver, this happens to be the last one, unlocks all the way at Renown 79. That's going to be like a couple of weeks or months or so after patch 9.1 launches. So even if we're looking at some of these traits, for all we know, even after this goes live, there might be some small tuning that happens with those. And even then, these are the kinds of things that are not going to matter in like the race to world first. Now, with all that set aside, let's get started and take a look at a bunch of these Soulbinds, starting with the Night Fae. So, we start off with Called Shot. When you critically strike, you gain movement speed for a couple of seconds, and it may only occur once every 10 seconds. Not a lot of uptime, doesn't seem to be particularly useful. And I think that's going to be a trend that we're going to see with most of these traits, where it's like, oh my god, this totally changes the game. No, not really. We're probably not going to see very many of those. And if we do, those are the ones that we're probably going to want to take a close look at, because they may be nerfed over the next couple of weeks or so. But not bad. Just a little bit of movement utility that you get from it. It's linked to the endurance slots. Not bad. But the frequency is fast enough to where you can have, obviously you can have a pretty decent uptime on it. The other choice that we have is Survivor's Rally. When you fall below 50% health, you regain 20% of your health over a couple seconds, and you receive 5% additional healing from other spells and abilities. This has a 1 minute cooldown. So this is like a Guardian Spirit, on a fixed 1 minute cooldown. It's not much healing, 5% additional healing, whoop-de-doo, but it's basically not bad for DPS if you wanted to go for this route. Or if you suddenly I got hit by a boop or something like that and I lost heck life, then some of it gets canceled out. So that's not bad for a 1 minute cooldown. And then finally we have Bonded Hearts, a lot of text. Gaining a stack of redirected anima from Grove Invigoration heals a couple of allies for a certain percentage of their health. If any of the affected allies are of another covenant, redirected anima's mastery and maximum health effects are increased by 50% for a couple seconds. Redirected anima comes from here, Grove Invigoration. And this is kind of dependent on your class. You can see here, Convoke. I have Convoke on this particular character. That gives me 16 stacks of this redirected anima. So you can kind of let's say we have this Bonded Hearts thing going. So if I happen to use my Convoke around that time, then it's going to give quite a bit of healing. Even then, it's not a lot of healing. It's 2% of their health, and at most it could be 3% of their health. Woo! Not a whole lot, but not bad if you happen to be going this route. It's just going to mean a little bit more extra healing for pretty much your raid or your group. That's not bad. Move on to Dreamweaver. What do we got here? We got Cunning Dreams. Entering Soul Shape slows enemies near your starting point for like 6 or so seconds. And it slows it by a lot. Wow. So like the PvP application to this is like even more messed up. You know, someone's on you, oh no, pop Soul Shape, you blink a little bit ahead. The dudes that you leave behind you are slowed down for 6 seconds. Like almost half of their speed. And then of course, if you have any other cooldowns or abilities that you can use to get away even farther, that flag carrying, man, those Night Fae. Now, that's not bad though. Waking Dreams is a trait where when you take damage below 80% health, you gain a shield for 30% of that damage amount, and it lasts for 3 seconds for real. What kind of... See, this is the kind of OP stuff that I'm talking about. So when you take... So I'm pretending I'm a tank. When I take damage below 80% health, you gain a shield. So if I take like a 10k hit, I'm going to get a shield for approximately like 30k. I'm sorry, for approximately 3k in the last 3 seconds. I mean, that's not bad, but that sort of passive healing is busted. I'm playing the druid tank a little bit more, and I'm using that one legendary that makes your thrash give the bubble, and then I'm using Earth Warden, which gives like the auto attack reduction from mobs. That's nuts. This equates to like so much passive healing. I think that this might be nerfed by a little bit. So like let's say if you take damage below 50% health, like it might be nerfed in that sense, but still this is a really strong trait, I think. Lastly, we have Dream Delver. Dealing damage or healing a target grants you increased damage or healing to that target for 4 seconds, and it's up to 3%. So 3 stacks, it looks like. So just, okay, it's a 3% throughput thing. Dealing damage or healing a target. It doesn't seem like it has a target limit either. So, yeah, that's not bad. Whether you're a healer or a deeps or a tank, that's a little bit of love for like everything on top of all these little things that you're doing. So lots of like soft little bits of damage and throughput. I'm sorry, healing and throughput that you put out. Again, I said put twice. Okay, let's move on to Khorane, starting with Vorkai Ambush. After interrupting or disorienting an enemy, they deal 5% less damage for 5 seconds. Okay, so wait. So disorienting doesn't mean anything, because if they're disoriented, they're doing 0 damage, unless there's like, oh, they applied a dot, and then you disorient them, and then while they're doing that, the dot does less dot, or something like that. And after interrupting, at least they're not doing their cast, but they're just probably doing melee attacks for those 5 seconds, which is, you know, it's something, I guess. It's something. But how about the other one? Hunt's Exhilaration. When damaging an enemy or healing an ally within 8 yards, you gain 3% leech for 5 seconds. That's easy. I think I would probably go for this one just because it's more likely to happen all the time. A little bit more leech, and I guess kind of locking myself to the finesse conduits might not be ideal considering this path. I'm already forced to have at least one. I'll have to get another one, but I guess it's not the end of the world depending on your class or your spec. And finally, let's look at Wild Hunt Stratagem. When your damage or healing is enhanced by Wild Hunt tactics, gain Wild Hunt Stratagem for 1 minute. The next time you damage an enemy who is below 35% health, or heal an ally who is above 75% health, Wild Hunt Stratagem is activated to increase your damage and healing to such targets by 5%. This is busy. Okay, so when your damage or healing is enhanced by Wild Hunt Tactics. Now, Wild Hunt Tactics is a thing at the top where within the opposite of execute range, when they're at high health, above 75% health, then you activate Wild Hunt target. So I guess when you do this, when you strike a high health target, you activate Wild Hunt Tactics and you turn on this Wild Hunt Stratagem for 1 minute. Within that 1 minute, the next time you damage an enemy who is below 35% health, yada yada. This is a really is kind of a whack-ass way to say, hey, here's how you can do 5% more damage to a certain target for 10 seconds. I think this could have, I know that they were trying to like link the top thing and then the bottom thing together to like make it cool. But I think it just could have been simplified and say, hey, you know, let's just add a temporary execute thing and not have it anything to do with Wild Hunt tactics, because this doesn't seem to have much use at all in like a raid scenario or even like a boss scenario, because you have to get from here. It's complicated. It's like you have to kill things in a minute. This is great for like short fights, world content and other such things, but just not for prolonged fights. Now we are on Necrolords. I happen to be on a Warlock at the moment, so you might see numbers that are going to be different depending on your class. I tried looking at Wowhead and I found numbers that were also different. So instead, you know, just so you know, I'm looking at this stuff in game to get like the most accurate read of whatever the heck these abilities are. So we're taking a look now at Necrolord Soulbind new stuff that's coming in 9.1. Of course, we have the potency slots, as said. Everyone's going to have that. But now let's take a look at some specifics to the Necrolords. Viscous Trail. When struck by a snare, you drop a puddle that lasts for a little while. Enemies that step in that puddle are slowed by 70% for 5 seconds, and it may only occur once every 60 seconds. So this is like another flag carrying sort of thing, the way I say it. When you're struck by a snare, you drop the poop, and dudes that are there are, it doesn't matter if it's a ranged person that happens to be snaring you, it's like, hey, you know, so some hunters like, boop, you know, a concussion shot or something, and you're like, oh no, and you just kind of poop something as if you're like that scared, and the hunter's like, yeah, whatever, dude, whatever. But then for anyone else, obviously this is like an okay flag carrying sort of thing, not as controllable as the soul shape one that as I had described for the Night Fae, but this is like, it's not bad, not great, but if you happen to want to go the endurance routes, sure, you get a little something out of this. Now we're looking at undulating maneuvers. While above 80% health, 5% of damage taken is delayed and spread out over 5 seconds. So this is like a janky version of stagger, right? When you're above 80% health, that's the threshold at which this ability seems to work. 5% of damage, whew, 5%. Whoa, hold the phone, guys. 5% of damage taken is delayed and spread out over 5 seconds. Now, if this was like legit stagger, then it would be, you know, almost problematic, because it's like, oh, you have no way to cleanse your stagger, by the way. Woohoo! But in this case, it's really soft. I think that unless there is a finesse conduit that you're really going for your particular class, this thing seems pretty whipped. I don't see a whole lot of passive healing coming from this, even if you happen to be like, oh, I'm a DPS and, you know, it'll let me take like a little bit less damage or something like that. Like the Night Fae one works out a lot better. You take a certain damage and then you get healed for a fairly significant amount. This does not seem to have a cooldown to it, but it just seems, you know, really soft. You know, I think this is like pretty ignorable. As for the last one, we have Kevin's Oozling. Decimating Bolt. Your Covenant ability will summon Kevin's Oozling to fight alongside you for a whole 15 seconds. His attacks cause your enemies to take 2% additional damage from you, and he periodically gives them a bubble for a really pathetic amount, a very sad bubble. So, not a very strong set of traits on this particular Soulbind. Now, Kevin's Oozling, it has a duration of 15 seconds. I'm sure it's going to be a little bit different depending on the class that you're actually playing. Again, I'm on a Warlock. And keep in mind that I think Decimating Bolt has a cooldown of 45 seconds. I think I have the button somewhere around here. 45 seconds. Okay, I was right. Woohoo! So it's going to have a bit different of a duration depending on your class. I think Paladins, for the 5 Paladins that have gone Necrolord, I believe that their Covenant ability has a 30-second cooldown. So it's going to have like a bit different of a it's going to have a bit different of an effect. Sorry, I was supposed to highlight this one here. But yeah, let's move on to the next dudette. Let's move on to a many. Soul Slow. That's cute. I love the puns. After standing still for 5 seconds, the next time you move, you and nearby allies will gain 20% increased movement speed for 10 seconds. 20% isn't a whole lot, but that's not bad. Depending on the kind of character that you're playing, like if you're a jump around crazy sort of rogue person, great, way to contribute to the team. But if you happen to be a tank, caster, healer, this gives an opportunity to give some decent passive run speed. In the case of, think of like the Nathrius fight, where it'd be nice to have a little bit more run speed boosts towards the end of phase 1, something like that. This gives that sort of opportunity to give like a little bit more of a boost. I have a feeling that this is not going to stack with certain effects that it may not say here in the tooltip, but that wouldn't surprise me one bit. But still, as a standalone ability, it's not bad. Not bad, considering that there's no cooldown. Resilient Stitching. While above 90%, we have a lot of these defensive things. While above 90% health, you gain a shield that absorbs 5,000 something magic damage for 1 minute. This effect may only occur once every minute, while above 90% health. So a lot of these feel very friendly towards non-tanks who are taking passive damage. That seems to be kind of the trend of this particular slot here, regardless of the Soulbind or the Covenant. Let's see if we can keep up this trend. But specific to this, since it's magic damage, again, it seems good for passive magic damage. There tends to be less passive physical damage that goes out. Although I'm thinking of something like Huntsman, where that bleed, I believe that's either shadow or physical damage, one of those things. But this seems to be a fairly reliable bit of damage reduction. I'm pretty sure that value there is dependent on my item level. My item level on this particular character is like sub 200. Yeah, it's not even at 200 yet. So I'm sure that this value will go up by a little bit, depending on probably your versatility or just in general your item level. Lastly, let's look at Pustule Eruption. Sexual. Fleshcraft covers you in 3 pustules per 1 second channeled. Taking damage or being healed pops a pustule, dealing nature damage to nearby enemies and healing nearby allies for a certain amount split between them. So very passive in this case. Fleshcraft has definitely gone up a bit in value ever since the 905 patch, where now you can cast it during channeling, so it's a great idea to use if you need to be on the move and you don't have any like decent abilities that you can fire off in the meantime. It's like, oh well, might as well pop this. I'll take some reduced damage, I'll get a nice little bubble, and in this case it'll prep a buff that will deal a little bit of damage. I mean, if you're range, not a big deal, but it will perhaps provide a little bit of healing. So it has a small benefit to it, better than nothing. Finally, we move on to Bonesmith. Let's see what this dude's got. Carver's Eye. Damaging an enemy above 90% health grants you a decent bit of mastery for 5 seconds, up to 5 stacks. Ooh, up to 5 stacks. You cannot gain this benefit from the same target for 10 seconds. So damaging an enemy, or let's pretend that damaging 5 enemies above 90% health will grant you mastery for 5 seconds per enemy, right? You cannot gain this benefit from the same target so definitely nice for AoE, definitely nice for people that rely on mastery, but only above 90% health, only 5 seconds. So something that is more ideal for outdoor world content, dungeons at best. Definitely not for raids unless there's going to be some encounters in Sanctum of Domination that have lots of targets coming in. But yeah, not bad. Waking Bone Breastplate. When 3 or more enemies are nearby. Okay, so now it works differently. Okay, when 3 or more enemies are nearby, your maximum health is increased by 5%. This effect lingers for 5 seconds. Okay, so this definitely feels like a more like a tanky sort of deal. There aren't too many scenarios. There are, but there aren't too many scenarios where a non-tank is going to have a whole bunch of bros or broettes hanging out next to them. But it's only 5%. I find this one pretty soft. And of course, in a single target encounter, pretty much does nothing. And so in that case, at least Carver's Eye would be an alternative to take. It'd be terrible if like both of them just didn't seem to do much of anything. Actually, no, I take that back. Damaging an enemy above 90% health. So here's the scenario. We're doing a raid boss. It's a single target. The dude falls under 90% health, and that's it. That's it. This entire row does nothing, and then you're just relying on whatever conduit slot that you put in. So I think they kind of did us dirty with this particular one. I think that if the Waking Bone breastplate lost effectiveness, you know, had at least some effectiveness when there's like one person, fine. But yeah, that this seems a little bit meh to me. Mnemonic equipment. When you damage an enemy that is below 30% health, if you're in execute range, 3% of the damage done is repeated over 5 seconds. Healing an ally grants the ability to have their damage repeat this way at 30% effectiveness for 5 seconds, limit 2. So straight DPS. When you damage an enemy that's in execute range, 3% of that damage does. So I don't know if, I'm not quite sure if this stacks or if this becomes like, it feels almost like it becomes a dot, where you keep applying this mnemonic equipment debuff as you're in this execute phase, and then 3% of your damage just keeps getting applied down. Now, it's not like it's a dot that keeps stacking and stacking. It's just something that'll constantly tick after a while. So in that execute range, it'll add a little bit of total damage there. It doesn't seem to be it doesn't seem to have a target limit either. Except for healing. Healing an ally grants them the ability to have their damage repeat this way. Yeah, so for them it's like 1%. For you it's excuse me, for you it's 3%. So it's not bad. All right, let's move on to the Venthyr. And I happen to be on a Shamaneminen for this particular demonstration. Let's start with Nadia and see what she's got. Looks like these shapes are a little bit different here. I think we're seeing like a finesse slot on the left instead of the right, and oh my gosh, big difference. That makes no difference basically, although the potency slot is in the same area. I'm not quite sure if I missed that on some of the other Soulbinds, but not a big deal. Let's take a look. Sinful Preservation has a 100-yard range. Health potions and health stones grant you an absorb shield equal to 50% of the amount. Dang. That's not bad. It's not a lot, but if you think about health, you know, potions, health stones, those are on a separate cooldown. That gives you that bit more of a heal of sorts, because now it becomes a bubble, and chances are that bubble is going to be consumed extremely quickly. So it's a pretty decent. It turns what is already a defensive or a healing cooldown into a more powerful defensive or healing cooldown. So that's not bad. Can't complain. Nimble Steps. Enemies within 8 yards are slowed by 10%. So it's a passive thing. Not bad. If you fall below 35% health, enemies within 8 yards are rooted for 4 seconds. This can only occur once every 60 seconds. So, okay, so if you happen to fall below 30%, 35% health while these dudes are around you, they get rooted, and it has a 1 minute cooldown. That's pretty good. I mean, it's pretty good, but how good? I mean, 4 seconds, I guess that's a good, decent way to automatically use one of the, you know, CC diminishing returns, you know, to apply one of those. Although that's kind of a bad thing too, because it's not exactly the kind of CC that you may want. And then they happen to get rooted. So it's one of those instances where it's like, oh, I can't really control exactly what I'm doing. But I am just a little bit surprised. I was thinking that there was going to be some sort of like DPS centric sort of thing, since Nadia is she's a very DPS centric soulbind. So now we have Fatal Flaw, which is probably DPS related. When the haste effect of Euphoria ends, and Euphoria, by the way, is related to Thrill Seeker, which goes off every like minute or so, 2 minutes maybe. But it's a nice little haste buff. Once it wears off, you gain 10 seconds of either 20% increased secondary stats, depending on which you have more of. 20%. Wow. Okay, so it's not even a fixed number. It is straight up a percentage of what you already have. It's going to apply. I don't know how crazy stuff like this can scale. I know that it is definitely possible to exceed and start getting into diminishing returns with secondary stats. Something like this, yes, you'll definitely reach that level of diminishing return, although it's still pretty darn nice. So seeing something like this could have some really strong long-term benefits if you are the type of class or spec that goes really heavy on a certain secondary stat. This just makes it all the more busted. Or if anything, it just makes it so that you can kind of dip a little bit on whatever your secondary stats are, so you reach less of a threshold. Depends on how you want to eyeball it or sim it or whatever. Let's move on to Theotar, the food guy. He's the food guy. Yeah. Anyway, it's always tea time, according to him. When Soothing Shade activates, which is the umbrella thing, Tubbins and Gubbins each offer you a cup of tea, healing you for a pitiful amount every 1 second, and reducing damage taken by 5% while standing in the shaded area. 5% and a really rotten heal. Part of me thinks that this may be buffed, but if not, this doesn't seem like it doesn't seem very strong either. I'm trying to remember. So this lasts for 12 seconds. This 12 seconds multiplied by the current value of 251 is just really sad. And this guy has really crap gear. He's item level 165, so it's definitely going to get higher. The values will get higher for a more geared character. But even then, this ain't a lot of nothing. Sorry, guys. This one doesn't seem to deliver very much, and we'll see if it gets adjusted. Life is but an appetizer. While you are well fed, you gain 60 speed and 60 avoidance. This one also doesn't seem like much, but I think that's more reliable. I guess it's more reliable, or just decent compared to tea time. Because 5% damage reduction, whether you're a tank or whoever, it just doesn't seem like very much. I mean, it'll help, right? It's better than nothing, but not by much. I think I'd be okay with having a little bit more speed. If I can get a chance to run out of boops, then it's better than taking 5% less boop. Know what I mean? Party favors. Once per day. Ooh, this is interesting. Once per day, you can speak with Theotar in Sinfall to obtain the Mad Duke's Tea, which increases your agility by 3%, or your haste by 3%, or your critical strike chance by 3%, or your versatility by 3% for 1 hour. I happen to be enhancement spec right now, so I'm pretty sure this just changes to your main stats. So it'll increase your main stats, or haste, or crit, or verse. Okay, so this is pretty cool because it's like a food buff that you can get. Although I don't know if this is a Can I learn this right now? Can I please? Yeah, I don't know if this is this like a permanent thing? Is it reusable? I know it says like once per day I can pick it up. So is this a food buff that I can only use for like that one pull, guys? Make it count. Oh, someone early pulled. There goes the neighborhood. And my renown is not high enough. I'm really sad, guys. That's really pathetic of me. But that's kind of what we're looking at here. We're looking at something that can give like a decent primary or secondary stat boost for 1 hour that no one else is going to have except for Venthyr people. Because I can always just change to this guy, right? The moment that I'm able to unlock Theotar, I'm wondering, do I need to switch my Soulbind to Theotar and then talk to him, or can I just like straight up talk to him once I get the necessary renown to open this thing up? Not too sure. So let's move on to Draven. Let's see what he's got. Regenerative stone skin, typical. Any overhealing done to you, will heal for an additional 15% of the overhealing amount over 6 seconds. It's not bad. Okay, this is not bad, but the problem is you're overhealing. So if someone's overhealing me and I'm getting 15% of the overhealing over 6 seconds, guess what? That's more overhealing. Woo woo. It'd be better if this was like, if this applied as a damage reduction, a bubble, something like that, something that we're used to. So seeing something like this, it makes it much less effective than it looks, because it's like, okay, boom, you get overhealed, and then all of a sudden, boom, you get smacked hard enough to take advantage of a 6-second hot. Yeah, this is just, it's okay. It's not great. It's okay. Intimidation tactics. While below 50% health, Door of Shadows cools down 50% faster. Definitely something that's only for tanks, because not everyone is going to be able to take advantage of this cooldown reduction. But there aren't too many situations where a tank needs to use Door of Shadows. Maybe there could be an encounter, or there could be a or a dungeon where having a slightly faster blink for a tank is beneficial, but that seems pretty like kind of meh. I think regenerative stone skin is definitely the way to go. Just good luck having a finesse conduit to use with it. And finally, we have Battlefield Presence. Each nearby enemy trembles at your presence, increasing your damage and healing by 1%, and reducing damage taken by 1% up to a maximum of 3 enemies. So I was talking earlier about, I think it was one of the Necrolord abilities, and it's like, oh man, this is not going to be great at all, because there's, after the boss or whatever goes down a certain HP, then it's not going to feel effective. This is something that's more effective. At least it works with one target. So it's like, okay, cool, you get 1% damage and healing done, and 1% damage reduction. It's pathetic for something that's at the very bottom. You would think that, hey, there should be a lot more, but I think the nature of these Soulbinds here are not made to be like, whoa, this is amazing, I'm totally gonna switch my covenants for these. I think Blizzard wants to avoid that. They're playing it safe. But as a result, it makes many of these traits not feel very exciting. So I have a feeling that the comments below are going to be like, wow, that's really great, these don't matter at all, fix your game, Blizz, yada yada yada. Now let's move on. I mean, not to say that I'm dissatisfied with the Soulbinds at all. I mean, it's nice to earn a little bit something more as we're playing through this expansion. Seeing something broken like Concordance of the Legion Fall or something like that, I mean, obviously that changed the game for a lot of folks, and it enabled all sorts of antics and shenanigans. But something like this isn't bad either. Now finally, last but not least, the Kyrian. And please have good stuff. If you didn't know already, I'm doing pretty fresh reactions to these. I have no idea what a lot of these abilities were until I'm seeing them for the first time, like right now. So anyway, starting with Pelagros, we got Better Together. During combat, moving within 3 yards of a party or raid member inspires both of you, increasing mastery by 40%, by a really sad amount for 1 minute. Players may only be affected by one such effect. So if there are a bunch of Kyrian all in one spot, I guess all the non-Kyrians, they will also get 40 mastery. 40 mastery, guys. That ain't a lot of mastery. Okay, so this is my actual like decently geared character. 40 mastery is, I guess, a piece of gear. 1 gear's worth of, not even that. It's a really sad amount of mastery. This is not a lot, guys. But okay, 3 yards though. I guess that doesn't matter too much. 40 of us, 40 mastery though. That's not my first choice. Although, as a tank, I would want to get the endurance conduit slots more than likely. So this does make me a little bit sad. I'm like, oh, guess I'm stuck with it. But let's see what we're getting in. Let's see what we're missing out on. Path of the Devoted. After recovering from a loss of control effect, you take 15% reduced damage, and your movement speed cannot be reduced below 90% for 6 seconds. It may only occur once per 30 seconds. So this is cool for like flag carrying. Absolutely. Although it looks like I could still get like stun locked and everything, but at least I'm taking reduced damage. I can pop other things in the meantime, and it has a 30-second cooldown in between, so that's not bad. Although I mostly see PvP applications for this, not so much for like dungeons, raids, unless they're, you know, the certain mechanic or a certain encounter calls for taking advantage of something like this. So instead of just having the passive 40% mastery is sad, but hey, I want the endurance. I probably want the endurance slot, so I'm probably going to take it. Anyway, finally, Pelagos has newfound resolve. At any moment during combat, any moment, there's a low chance that your doubt will manifest for 10 seconds. Directly facing your doubt will overcome it, granting 12% and stamina for 15. Damn. Okay, so it says there's a low chance. So I'm going to guess that there's probably at least 2 minutes. Yeah, maybe like 2 minutes. It might appear. Directly facing your doubt is dangerous as a tank. Do you really want to have your back turned against the boss or a group of enemies that's trying to pound your face in? Maybe, because 12 strength and 12 stamina, that's not bad. That's a pretty significant amount. That's more than you know, power word fortitude. That's more than double power word fortitude, right? So it's pretty decent, as long as you are as long as you face your doubt at a good time. You know, you don't want to risk your life doing it. I'll probably risk my life doing it. Let's move on to my favorite, Kalea. Spear of the Archon. Movement speed is increased by 6% while out of combat. Gain 3% crit strike for 10 seconds after damage. Oh, so it's like two totally different things. Okay, so this is so weird. You gain movement speed while you're out of combat. Whoop-de-doo. You gain 3% crit strike chance for 10 seconds after damaging an enemy above 90% health. So again, this is one of those not great for single target boss fights, but if that boss happens to have ads coming in, just like boop, pluck them, and then you get a little bit more crit. Kalea is very crit centric, lots of crit buffs. That if your class takes a good advantage of crit, she can be pretty beneficial. Hope Springs Eternal. Your Phial of Serenity reduces damage taken by 10% for 8 seconds, and its effects are also granted to your lowest health ally. Okay, I don't see much of a benefit of applying to my lowest health ally, because that could be anybody at the time. But the damage reduction, that's not bad. It's not bad. Although I can only use it once per fight, or otherwise once for every 5 minutes. Something I could do if I wanted to. I can go this route, go for Ascendant Phial, and, you know, get some of those auto cleanses in. But this isn't huge. A 10% damage reduction is nothing to complain over, though. So, yeah. If anything, it gives a little bit more meaning to not exactly the cleanse, but just the healing that we get out of it. Because the healing, it doesn't scale up that great, but it is just nice to have that one extra heal on top of a healing potion, on top of a health stone, and whatever other tricks that we may have. As for being forced into the finesse slots, I'm a little bit mixed on that. So I think either of these trades can like do pretty decent. It just depends on the encounter. Then finally we have Light the Path. Your Valiant Strikes grant crit strike chance per stack. Valiant Strikes, by the way, is like the very top thing. And I believe, and I did actually take a look at this one really quick. I believe this gives 5% crit strike chance at maximum stacks. Anyway, when your Valiant Strikes heals an ally, you each gain 5% crit strike chance for 12 seconds. So this is interesting, now that I'm really like sitting and thinking about this, because Valiant Strikes is very unreliable. You can see here in the tooltip, it's like, cool, I'm ready to heal some dudes, and in the meantime, you can see that my crit strike chance is increased by 5%. However, Valiant Strikes might heal someone at any time. anytime it feels like it's very infuriating, because sometimes I might have 2 stacks and then it's like, okay, cool, I healed someone for 2% of their health. This is awesome. Not really. It's not really awesome. And then Valiant Strikes doesn't start building up stacks again for another minute. There's a cooldown between those. Some of you might be familiar with this ability and other similar ones. So seeing this new thing, when your Valiant Strikes heals an ally, you each gain 5% crit strike chance. That's kind of a fix in order to make it so that, okay, cool. So even though the heal that you happen to put on your buddy was really poop, at least you're getting that full 5% crit strike chance, even if I didn't build up those 20 stacks. So overall, this is going to be a fairly decent crit buff, I think. That's kind of like how I'm looking at this right now. All right, finally, let's go to Mechanicos, or Mechanicos, according to the text-to-speech thing that's built into WoW. You should check it out. He's got Soul Glow Spectrometer. Damaging or healing a target analyzes its merit over 15-something seconds, increasing your damage or healing to it by 1%, and increases every 3 seconds. So it's... Okay, and you cannot start a new analysis until the previous one has finished. So it looks like you hit something. Whatever happens to get hit first, it gets this stacking buff, and it'll stack on its own over the 15 seconds. And once it's done, this Soul Glow thing can apply to whatever the heck our next target is. Again, for those 15 or so seconds. Now I'm kind of curious. Like, can this easily switch if I happen to be fighting a bunch of like small mobs at once or something like that? But this equates to a whopping 5% 5% damage or healing, which is not a lot at all. I guess you can kind of game it so that way when the Soul Glow thing wears off, you just hit your main target again, and then the stacks start building up again. But I think that's a bit too much work for such a small for what's a pretty small buff. But it's not bad. This is like, it's straight up passive throughput, healing, DPS, whatever. It's hard to complain over that, and it's constantly going. It seems to apply pretty easily. 15-second cooldown. It's not bad. Now we have reactive retrofitting. After taking physical or magic damage, you gain a shield that absorbs damage equal to 8% of your maximum health, and it lasts for 10 seconds. Each incoming damage type may trigger this effect once per 30 seconds. Each damage thing may trigger this effect. So I guess between magic and physical damage, there's like a separate... is there a separate... I'm reading this. It looks like you can apply both effects at once, maybe? Which could be pretty sweet. Because 8% of your maximum health is no small deal. At a 30-second cooldown, that's not bad. As a tank, at least. As a not tank, this is meh. You know, forget it. Just go for the passive. Go for the passive throughputs all the way. Something like this is more interesting though. This I think seems pretty cool. But I would want to do a lot more testing to see like just how reliable it is, and then of course it depends on the fight that we're in. If there's going to be quite a bit of physical and magic damage that goes out, which is pretty typical, I think tanks can rely on this trait fairly well if they can put up with having a finesse conduit attached to it. Finally, we have the Effusive Anima Accelerator, Divine Toll, or your Covenant ability. Whatever it is, it releases a blast of overcharged anima at your target's location. So whoever I hit with it, boing, it's gonna hit that. Dealing a lot of arcane damage, not a lot, but kind of a lot of arcane damage, split evenly among all targets over 8 seconds. So it's effective even on a single target. It also reduces the cooldown of your Divine Toll or Fan of Shields or whatever by 4 seconds per effective enemy, up to a maximum. Damn. Okay, so ooh. Divine Toll for Paladins has a cooldown of 60 seconds. I'm sure that depending on your class, it's going these values change. It might be 20 seconds, it might be 10 seconds, it might be 30 seconds or whatever. But seeing something like this will put Divine Toll at a cooldown of only 40 seconds, which is mean. As long as you're fighting 5 targets at once, so that way all the shields or judgments or holy shocks or whatever will get everybody. Oh man, this will be great for healers. Holy smokes! Yeah. So, actually, no. Let me take that back, because this applies with damage. Okay, divine. It releases the blast. You know what? I'm gonna. Since we're doing this right now, I'm going to switch to Holy and see what happens. See if the tooltip changes any. Because that is... I guess it would show here if it was... let's see. It releases the blast of... At your target... So what if I target myself? If I target myself and then I hit... Divine Toll, wherever that button is that going to hit these guys? Let's see. Boop. It did hit these guys. Or maybe that was Holy Shock, actually. No, it did hit these. So now my Divine Toll only has 30 seconds. Oh man. Okay, so this does have a Holy application to it. All right, let's take a look at this one more time. Okay, so Divine Toll releases the blast of whatever. It doesn't quite give a range of how far targets needs to be, but it looks like there's a reasonable chance that you'll be able to reduce your Divine Toll's cooldown by something close to that 20 seconds. Oh, that's good. Ooh, I'm gonna rethink what I want to do with Mechanicos. Oh man, because right now I'm like not very about Mechanicos. I'm a Clea. She's my bae, but this is pretty sweet. Of course, there are a lot of things that we don't know yet, folks. We don't know if there are going to be, if there's going to be a new round or an additional round of these conduits. We may very well see a bunch of them come in over the next couple weeks or months or so, because we don't have a lot. We only have like 4 or so of these finesse conduits that anyone can get. Correct me if I'm wrong, please. But and also there's this conduit energy to kind of contend with too. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's like 9 or 10. There's quite a few conduit slots that we have now. Having conduit energy doesn't feel like it has any purpose. I don't know about you. I'm just coming from my perspective, but I never needed to like do so much swapping that I needed to like spend all my conduit energy and have to wait or something like that. It feels like it doesn't need to be there. Yeah, it just seems kind of superfluous. I know I'm kind of talking in circles, or I'm talking backwards about this, because it's like, okay, if you're not using it, might as well leave it there. But I'd rather just have it like go away, because there might be some extreme scenarios like day 1 of the patch. Hey, I want to change all my Soulbinds because I have all these new things and all these new conduits and yada yada yada. But I can't because I don't have enough conduit energy. But I'm aware that we won't even be able to unlock all of these rows at this on day 1 anyway. We're gonna be slow walk through it just like we were in the 9.0. So maybe my concerns about that don't matter, but that's it. I think we successfully looked at all 12 or so of the Soulbinds along with all their traits, and we talked some smack and gave some praise on all of them. But what do you think? Cool? Not cool? Soft? Not soft? Does it matter? Is it going to be worth the wait, however long it's going to be to finally unlock these? Share your thoughts in a comment below, and of course, please subscribe if you haven't already, like the video if you enjoyed yourself, and I hope to see you soon for more stuff like this and all things Warcraft. We'll see you in the next video, and until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and stay breezy.